Good morning, learners. We'll continue with our chapter, Discovering Tut. The saga continues, and so is our saga. It is always like an ongoing process. And yesterday we did how this person, he was from Britain, he was a British, okay, Carter, how he had excavated the mummy, and how people believe, the later historians believe, that he was basically responsible for the distortion of mummy. And in his defense, Carter really had little choice. Means he could not say much in his defense when people alleged him for having destroyed, for having distorted the mummy. He could not say much in his defense. If he had not cut the mummy free, thieves most certainly would have circumvented the guards and ripped it apart to remove the gold. Now, he did not have much of the choice, because that was he who actually had, excavated it, and who actually had attracted the attention of thieves and, these all these persons who were quite fascinated by the amount of gold. If he had not cut the mummy free. Now, there is this one minute. There is this word, no? What's that? Where is it gone to? Yeah, so if he had not cut the mummy free, means if he had not excavated it, if he had not let it loose free, thieves would have circumvented the guards, and thieves would have taken round and round. They would always have been hovering around here, and they would have ripped it apart. They've destroyed it just to remove the gold. In Tut's time, the royals were fabulously wealthy. Now, you will be wondering why the mummy would be having any kind of gold with it, But, my dear ones, in Egyptian era, in Tut's time, the royals were fabulously wealthy. These people were fabulously wealthy and rich. And they thought or hoped they could take their riches with them. They always thought that maybe, we can take our riches with us. What they will do, they will get all the, this gold, all their precious stones, jewels, everything, they will have it, buried with them. For his journey to the great beyond, King Tut was lavished. He was lavished with glittering goods. Now, for his journey to the great beyond. Now, journey to the great beyond means for a journey which is from this world to another world. And in thinking about this journey, King Tut was lavish means he was laden with glittering goods, shiny goods, precious collars, fancy collars, these neck collars, inlaid necklaces, beautiful crafted necklaces, and bracelets, rings, amulets, a ceremonial apron, to wear it, and sandals, sheets for his fingers, coverings, this is sheet means covering, and toes, and the now iconic inner coffin. Like, this coffin was also very iconic. It was very, different. Everything was made up of everything was made up of pure gold. To separate Tut from his adornments, Carter's men removed the mummy's head and severed nearly every major joint. Now, to separate Tut from his adornments, actually Tut was so much fixed with his, goldy things, that Carter's men, they had to remove the head. They had to remove it, and they had to sever it in every major joint. Sever means cut. Sever means cut. And once they had finished, they reassembled the remains on a layer of sand. And once everything was done, they reassemble. Reassemble means they rejoined the remains, means the leftover parts, on a layer of sand. They just had put a layer of sand. They had put all those parts on that layer of sand in a wooden box with padding. Padding means some few foams and all, which conceal the damage. And the bed where Tut now rests. And it is now the bed. And the present bed which you see these days is the bed which Carter had cut for him. Archaeology has changed substantially in the intervening decades. Archaeology has changed, obviously, it has changed a lot. Substantial means to a lot extent. In the intervening means in the upcoming decades. Focusing less on treasure and more on the fascinating details of life and intriguing mysteries of death. Nowadays, the author wants to say that we as archaeologists, we don't want to like focus on the money and the treasure and the gold, excuse me, which is buried with the dead bodies. Like nowadays, archaeologists, they don't believe in focusing on all these things. Rather, they believe on other things like the other fascinating means beautiful details of life and the intriguing, the hidden secrets, the mysteries of death. They are more focused on them. And it also uses more sophisticated tools, including, and they also uses more sophisticated tools, including nowadays they are not only like digging the grave out or digging the mummy out. No, they use beautiful tools to take the mummy out, including the medical technology. The even we have gone for, I would say, a kind of revolutionary changes have taken place when it comes to excavating a dead body. In 1968, more than 40 years after his discovery, an anatomy professor, he x-rayed the mummy. Would you believe, like a professor, an anatomy professor, he just took an x-ray of the mummy and he revealed a startling fact. Startling means shocking fact, surprising fact. And he said that beneath the raisin that cakes his chest, his breastbone and front ribs are missing. Oh my God. So under those raisin means the dry fruit, under those dry fruit that cakes his chest, actually the chest was like, glued with the raisins. And under that, his breastbone and his ribs were missing. Where is it gone to? Oh man. Today, diagnostic imaging can be done with computed tomography. You would say it's a discovery, a kind of, X-ray. It's a kind of CT scan by which hundreds of X-rays in cross sections are put together like slices of bread to create a three-dimensional. Now you will get a three-dimensional image of your body. And what more would a CT scan reveal of that than the X-ray? Now you can understand, how far can it be, fascinating to take an X-ray or a CT scan of these old mummies. Like what kind of secrets may be revealed, and could it answer two of the biggest questions still lingering about him? Now the author is wondering, can these CT scans, these computer tomographies, can they reveal the biggest questions of the timeline? What are the questions? How did he die? And how old was he at the time of his death? Now, King Tut's demise was a big event. Now, the author is saying that his demise means his death. It was a very big event. Even by royal standards, he was the last of his family's line. Why it was a big event? Because he was the last of the lineage. And his lineage, that lineage means the family ancestral. And his funeral was the death rattle of dynasty. His funeral was like, it was a big time event. It was like people were rattling out, because he was the last of the dynasty. But the particulars of his passing away and its aftermath are unclear. But the problem is that how did he die is still a secret. Amenhotep III, Tut's father or grandfather. Now we do not know whether he was father or whether he was grandfather. His name was Amenhotep III. He was a very, very powerful pharaoh. Pharaoh is, that kings in Egypt, and this pharaoh he ruled for almost 4 decades at the height of the 18th dynasty's golden age. And this man he ruled for 4 decades at the height of the 18th dynasty's golden age. Like, he ruled a golden era in Egypt. His son was Amenhotep IV, succeeded him. Obviously, the son only succeeds the father, so the son succeeded father, and he initiated one of the strangest periods in the history of ancient Egypt. And when Amenhotep IV, when he took over the kingdom, he just started with some of the really strange, very bizarre kind of notions in ancient Egypt. The new pharaoh, he promoted the worship of the Aten, the sun disk. And what was that strange thing? He promoted the worship of the sun god. He changed his name to Akhenaten, or servant of the Aten. Alright everyone, we'll stop here and we will continue with it tomorrow.